Hi, fifth grade. Today we're going to be switching gears and we're moving on to Module 2, Lesson 16. And instead of multiplying, we are now moving on to dividing. So just like the first part of this module, we are going to be doing all dividing right now with whole numbers. And then eventually we will move on to dividing with decimals. But let's just start today with whole numbers. So fifth grade, for our first problem, what we're going to be looking at is this problem, 420 divided by 10. Now there's a lot of different ways that I can solve this problem, and I'm kind of looking at the notes to help me out with this first part. I remember that way back in Module 1, we learned how to use a place value chart to help us solve these problems that were divided by 10 or multiplied by 10. So if I were to use my place value chart, I could write the number 420 into my place value chart. I have 4 hundreds, 2 tens, and 0 ones. And when I divide this number by 10, I move every digit 1 space to the right. So it's kind of like my number is shifting on my place value charts to show that it's becoming 10 times less. So like this 0 would be in my tenths place now. And then my 2 tens will become 2 ones, and my 4 hundreds will become 4 tens. So I could use that method to help me figure out that 420 divided by 10 is just 42. That's one way I could figure out this answer. Now another way that I could figure it out is we learned about how we could also move those decimals around. So if I had the problem of 420 divided by 10, I will rewrite this number right here and remind myself that 420, where the decimal is at, I can't really see the decimal right now, but I remember that the decimal, if it's a whole number, is usually in the back because it's kind of like it's invisible right now. Now when I divide by 10, I'm making my number smaller, so I'm moving my number, or moving my decimal over, so that my number is getting smaller. So I'm moving it to the left so that my number is getting smaller. And I can rewrite my answer as 42. If I want to, I could also write as 42.0 if that helps you out. So these are just a couple of ways that we can figure out these problems that are being divided by 10, 100, 1,000, things like that. And when you get to your problem set today, most of your problems, or a good first page of it, is all going to be taking numbers and dividing them by 10, 100, 1,000, numbers like that. Now another strategy that I want to show you, let me go get my eraser, is I can do a much quicker way. And I'm going to show you what this quicker way is. When I have this number, 420 divided by 10, what I can do is I'm going to pay close attention to this 10 over here. This 10 has 1 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross off this 1 0, and since I crossed off 1 0 over here, I'm going to cross off 1 0 over here. Remember, it only matters how many zeros are over here. It does not matter how many zeros are over here right now. So I'm going to circle this number, and I'm going to think about how many zeros do I see, cross that off, and then since I crossed off 1 0 over here, I'm going to cross off 1 0 over here. And then I'm going to think about, well, the numbers that are left over, 42 and 1 over here, I can think of this problem now as 42 divided by 1. And even though this sounds like it might be a tough fact for me to solve, 42 divided by 1, and I can even rewrite it to help me out, 42 divided by 1, or any number divided by 1, is just that number. So 42 divided by 1 is just 42. And that's another way that I can find my answer. So let's take a look at the next problem, problem number 2 now. And problem number 2 is 1,600 divided by 100. Now, fifth grade, I'm going to continue using that strategy that I just showed you because it's the quickest and easiest way to do it in my opinion. But if you would like to use a place value chart, or if you would like to move around your decimal, you can also do that. So like if I had a place value chart, I would have my thousands, my hundreds, my tens, and my ones. And I would write the number 1,600. And then I would have to move everything over 2 times to the right. I shift everything over 2 times to the right. But remember, if I write it out with that new strategy that I taught you, I take a look just at this number over here, my divisor. I can circle that, think about it, and I see that there are 2 zeros over here. So if there's 2 zeros over here, I can cross off 2 zeros over here. And what that leaves me with is just these numbers that are left over. So all I'm left with is 16 divided by 1, and 16 divided by 1, or any number divided by itself, is just that number. So 16 divided by 1 is 16, and that is my final answer. And again, if it helps you to use a place value chart or other strategies, you can use those as well. Like the 0 would be moving all the way over to the hundredths. The 0 and the tens will move over to the tenths. So we have hundredths, we have tenths, decimal, and then this hundreds would move over to the ones, and this 1,000 would move over to my tens, and again that would create 16 as well. All right, let's take a look at our third problem, and you're going to see why this strategy that I just taught you is going to help you out a lot. So we have the number 24,000 divided by 600. Now 600 is not a power of 10. So if I were to use a place value chart, I really wouldn't be able to use that exactly to help me out with this problem. But if I use that strategy that I just taught you, it's a little bit easier. So remember, I want to look at this divisor. My second number is always called my divisor. And I'm going to look at this number, and I'm going to see how many zeros are in this number 600. Well, there are 2 zeros, and since there's 2 zeros here, I'm going to cross off 2 zeros over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this problem. Actually, what's going to help you out is if you start from the back and cross off the zeros. And then what I'm going to think about is what is left over in this problem now that has not been crossed off. I'm going to rewrite this problem as 240 divided by 6. And now what I can do is I can just think about what is 24 divided by 6. Well, if I don't know my division facts, I could also think of this as 6 times what is 24. So if I need to, I can think in my head, 6 times what equals 24. So 5th grade, I could think of 24 divided by 6 is 4, or 6 times 4 is 24. So 24 by 6, I will write a 4 here. And what I need to pay attention to is that there is a 0 left over here. So I want to make sure that I bring that 0 down. And then my final answer is 40. So just to recap, because this is a really short lesson, what I did is I wrote the problem out. Then I crossed off the zeros. So however many zeros over here, I can cross off those zeros over here. Whatever was left over, I then write it down here as a new problem. And then I underline, if there's anything left, I underline the parts that can be divided. So 24 divided by 6. And then that's just like the problems that we had done a while back. It's just 24 divided by 6 and bring down any zeros that are left over. So what I want you to do is try this problem on the back. You're going to be dividing 180,000 and you're dividing that by 9,000. So think about how many zeros are in your divisor. How many can you cross off over here? What would your new problem look like when those zeros are not there? And then divide by 9. So show me your work whenever you are done, and then you'll move on to the problem set. Great job today, and good luck.